Okay, I'll call to order the October 14th, 2021 Public Works Committee, and since I got it, yeah. Can we get a roll call?
Alderman Waggy,
Here.
Alderman Gold,
Here.
Alderman Lockmiller,
Here.
Alderwoman Tice. Here. All members are present.
Thank you. Move on to the approval and amendment of the agenda. If there are any changes, let me know. If not, okay to approve by acclamation. Good. Move into section 3, citizen comments. Anybody online?
No.
Anybody in the audience wish to address the board? Great. Move into report of the committee chair and alderman. Myself, I guess the two things I have is I'm watching very closely and enjoying watching the new sidewalk come in on Rosalie. So we've been walking by that every day. I know the rain has delayed them a lot this week, but I think that first section that they've done really looks great. And it looks like they're working hard to make sure that those front retaining walls in the yards are maintained. I know it's a tight. And then tomorrow, we invited all of the aldermen. The Sustainability Commission is taking a tour of our single stream recycling facility up in Hazelwood. So it's just an opportunity to go see what that facility looks like. Hopefully we can ask them some questions about, what is the kind of stuff that you see that causes you problems? Maybe learn more about, what happens after our green bins are picked up. And maybe we can learn, and so there might be some adjustments to our recycling program, maybe as an outcome of that. So who knows? So I'm actually looking forward to that. So field trip Friday. My kids are jealous. So that's all I have. Alderman Gould.
The only thing I would echo is I think Alderwoman Tice, you mentioned that some residents approaching you about traffic calming measures, and I've also had a couple residents actually in Ward 1 reach out to me. So I think it is something that we definitely need to, especially now that we have speed cushions and all of that, we need to probably think about that budget-wise on our roads. I know that's a public safety thing, but just wanted to bring that up.
Great. Thanks, Jeff. Steve?
No report.
Great. Nancy?
I have one thing, and I don't mean, I had really intended to email Dan before the meeting, and it didn't happen. So I've had a constituent ask about the routes that the trash and recycle trucks take, and wondering if there is a way to alter their schedule just a little bit, because they seem to be typically on like Pine and White, particularly Pine, early in the morning, like between 8 and 9. And so there are lots of, like we all have heard often how much the traffic on Pine is an issue, but when the trash trucks are there and a lot of people are going through, I've had a complaint. So I just mention it to see if there's something that could be looked at with the trash truck schedule. Thank you. No, and that's all. Thank you.
Okay. Move on to item 5, city administrator report. The most exciting thing that's going to happen tonight, probably. We're ready for that?
Yes. So who wants to kick this off? Okay, I see Ted there. And then
Hi, Ted. Can you hear us okay?
I can hear you just fine.
Great. We hear you as well.
Claus is also here from SWT. Oh, sorry. Okay. Should we dim the lights, Eric?
So dramatic.
The presentation will pop better. Looking over. Lights blinking.
Blinking white.
Killing me. Now it's.
Yes.
There we go.
Yay.
Technology works. Okay. All right, good evening. My name is Craig Schlitter with Navigate Building Solutions. We are the owner representative for the Brentwood Bound projects. This is a really exciting night that we're excited to share with you all. Tonight, SWT is presenting the schematic design, so that's the 30% level of design of this amazing destination playground that would be in the new Brentwood Park. Just to bring everyone through and help remind everyone where we've come from, the last time we presented and were in front of all of you all was in the May work session, and that was when the conceptual design was presented of various playground sizes, 2 million, 3.5, and 5 million. We later received direction from you all to pursue the design of a $5 million playground, and that's what SWT is going to be presenting to you all is the 30% design of this $5 million playground. And for the first time, they've actually been able to put pen and paper, so you'll see a lot more detail than back in May. While 5 months has gone by, there's been a tremendous amount of effort and time that's been put into this project, coordinating with property owners, coordinating with all the construction projects going on there, looking at all the different play features and trying to maximize the play areas and to make this just an unbelievable playground for the region. So again, we're really excited about where we're at. And before I turn it over to Ted with SWT, I did want to mention that we are going to be seeking a few approvals from you all tonight that I'll talk about at the end of the presentation. And the goal is to get some of those approvals, hear some feedback from you all, just like we did at the event lawn coverage station building. And then we would then take this to the November 1st Board of Aldermen meeting. And this team would do a presentation to the full board, but we would also be seeking your recommendation tonight to the full board to allow us to pursue the next level of design, which is design development, and a few other things I'll touch on later. So that's kind of where we've come from, where we're at today, and where we're going. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Ted, to walk us through this amazing project.
Thanks, Craig.
So my name is Klaus Rausch. I'm project manager for this project, and I will help Ted navigate through the presentation. So Ted.
Great. Thanks. Let's go to the next slide. So some of you, as Craig set it up very well, just talking about our project goals and creating a destination play facility. That's one of our key items is how can we make this memorable? How can we make this unique to the city of Brentwood, but even beyond? We see this as a great attraction to the region and thinking about how it can be a catalyst, part of the catalyst for economic renewal along the Brentwood bound borders and the edges of the city, but also creating a brand and an identity. And I know many of you have visited some of our playgrounds, and they're all very unique in their own way. So really just trying to find what would be unique, fresh, exciting, forward-thinking has been very important to us. And then one of the things I'm also very interested in is connecting people to nature. I believe that really the catalyst of the Brentwood Bound project is simply the Deer Creek watershed in some respects, and really thinking about that and honoring that watershed in some way. So we'll talk a little bit about that, making sure that we're not only cost effective at the operation maintenance side. We've been talking to staff throughout the design process as we talk about maintenance items. And in fact, one of the key maintenance items is trying to lift the major area of the playground out of the normal floodway area so that we can avoid getting siltation and things like that into the fall zone areas. So a lot of that's been part of our critical thinking. And then the other is to really make sure, and Craig's going to talk about this a little bit later, is maximizing our competitive bid market. As you know, it's been competitive, but probably in the wrong way. So really we need to be thinking about how do we strategize with that. And so we'll talk a little bit about that as well. And then leveraging grants and donations. And so Eric has been working on actually a most recent grant over the summer for play equipment. So all of this has been critical in our thinking and creating the goals. So the next slide really kind of just refreshes us all with the area. We love being right next to the event pavilion and right next to the future amphitheater and the pond, and really being between those two elements along the GRG trail. So as you recall, we opted to go with roughly a 2-acre parcel, which is very akin to kind of that O'Day Park area. One of the challenges with this site is it's a sloped hill. But at the same time, I see that as a great opportunity. So as we look at sculpting the land and really creating something unique, you'll see that grading and topography plays a big portion of our design, and being able to work with on-site soils to do that is going to be super helpful. So love the location. The next slide, you'll recognize the next slide.
Button and said, okay, there was an error.
Uh-oh. You didn't push the wrong buttons, did you, Klaus? There we go. So the next slide, you'll recognize this maybe a little bit. We did a diagram when we did the very early conceptual planning. And one of the things we wanted to do is really create, kind of 4 distinctive outdoor rooms. And actually we've added a 5th. And the idea was, what keeps people coming back, week after week or day after day? And how do we make this in such a way that you discover something new, or as a child grows, they kind of graduate to another level within the play environment itself, the destination play. So we talked briefly the last time about the idea of the family fun play area being at the top of the hill, where you have good sight lines to the comfort station and the event pavilion area. The other was the water play area, as you can see here in the blue. And then the hub, which is kind of in the middle, touches really, from this point, you can see all the zones. So it's kind of like home base, if you will. And then the crazy climb area in kind of that yellow-orange color is an area where we see definitely older kids wanting to navigate to, but there's spaces within this space for younger kids as well. And then the adventure spine. The adventure spine you'll see here in a little bit is really a network of activity and play value and fun and discovery as you go along this path.
I'll try.
Okay, careful. There we go. What we wanted to do is with this plan, and you'll see more details of the plan. This may be hard to read, but it's meant to look like a very active network, and we did this purposefully. You'll see that there's kind of a dark dash that's heavy, and they both kind of create these almost question mark shapes. Those are all the ADA routes. The orange or yellow dots are the arrival or entry zones. So we see the main zone coming from the event pavilion, but then also another major entrance coming from the amphitheater area. And then more of a secondary entrance up at Brazeau, kind of a neighborhood connection at that location. But then you see a whole nother network, kind of a spaghetti there. This is where we see a lot of active play take place and discovery. So these are paths and different ways that you can get from one area to another piece of play equipment. I refer to this as kind of like the chutes and ladders game, right? You have a normal path that you can get somewhere along the way, but then you can kind of shortcut and make little movements all throughout. And so we were very strategic about that. And not all those locations are ADA accessible, but a majority of them are. And so we wanted to make this a place of discovery, a place of excitement, and really with high level of play value. So the next series of slides, we're really going to show the different zones. And what I want you to think about is we've worked really closely with Eric and his team and Craig and his team to really think about a design approach as well as a bidding approach when it comes to playground equipment selection. So what you're going to see here is you're going to see playground pieces, but what we're going to do is we're going to put it out to competitive bid. Where we get the imagination of all the playground suppliers that would wish to provide us bids on this at this stage. So what you're seeing here is are pieces of equipment that we feel are very desirable, and there are many suppliers that have similar pieces. So we didn't want to get pigeonholed. So when you look at what we're about ready to show you, be aware that these are images that will continue to evolve as we look at bids for the playground equipment itself. So for example, within the family play area, one of the things we see is ground-based slides that are more geared towards little kids. And in that ground-based slide, you can have what's called parallel play. We like having play equipment where kids have to work together and play together. So a number of these pieces are definitely kind of teamwork play and the fun things to do. You'll see that we have a separate area for swings. That's important. We want to have a lot of variable in swings. We have a lot of swing capacity here, and that was intentional. We know that that's a highly sought after activity. But it's also an activity where you don't want to have a lot of kids running in front of you. And so we'd like to separate this out, but still make it very engaging. You'll also see up at kind of the upper right there, there's an overlook. At that overlook, we're looking at a shade structure. And from that shade structure and overlook, you'd be able to see the whole play facility within the family area. And then that also gives you kind of a direct view back to the comfort station area. So it is important to kind of create that connectivity, not only visually, but also from a series of paths and networks and ADA compliant walkway systems. You'll see one piece here too, which would be a climbing apparatus. In this case here, we really like this kind of glue lam beam type of structure. It kind of harkens back to the glue lam that's in the event pavilion. We think it's has a lovely kind of contemporary vibe to it. It can really hold up to quite a few people on it. I don't know what the specification is off the top of my head, but it's lower ground-based activities. So both kids in wheelchairs and kids, young kids, could come right into that space and really engage in it. So again, these are items that we feel are desirable. When we did the design, we anticipate the amount of fall zone and safety surfacing to be able to accommodate pieces like this. And so when we put this out to bid, the equipment, we'll ask the playground suppliers to roughly stay within this design vocabulary as well as fall zone requirements. The next area we refer to again as the crazy climb area. It has a large centerpiece that will be in it. That would be a climbing piece that would go up to 20 feet to 24 feet high, if I recall. There's a number of companies that facilitate these larger climbing pieces. Some of them have slides coming off of them. Some of them have other types of platforms. There's actually smaller platforms within the middle of this piece. We're encouraging, we want to have pieces that have never been brought to this market before. This particular one has not been brought into the Midwest market yet. So we want to make sure that we have something super unique, super challenging, super exciting to bring people here. So we believe this piece here, if it comes out in the bid well, will work out well. But again, there's probably 3 or 4 other pieces that would have a very similar level of excitement. You'll also see here, again, one of a kind. We're looking at a dual zip line. we have a zip line where two people could come racing across. It looks like a dog bone shape there at the kind of the middle of that play area. And again, it's all ground-based activity, so it's not too tall, and it's in an area that the kids can zip across, and you'll see a little bit later what that looks like in our animation. Other activities is we want to have areas that are quiet. We do have kind of like a little council circle area along the main ADA walk that kids could have just a quiet time and a place to just enjoy their own imagination. I was one of those kids. I like looking at butterflies, so I wanted to be out of the active zone. And then there's also a tunnel that goes underneath the berming. So we have a tremendous amount of topography and grading in this area that we want to be really exciting and accessible to the kids. Also some logs, and you'll see there's kind of these log cookies to go up the hills. And so create a lot of different ways to engage the outdoor environment and the play facility. The next location is the Adventure Spine. The Adventure Spine is that a part of that network of ADA accessible walkway system. And from that, there's a lot of activity that flows along this edge. Everything from a area where there's additional decking and additional rope climbers and tunnels, rope tunnels, and other webbing and climbing devices. We see that as something that, and some of you have probably been to the small primate canopy trails. It takes on a little bit of that vocabulary, but done in a way that's going to be unique to this project. We're looking at, again, ground-based activities and slides coming off the hill slide here. And you'll see at the end of that curved walk, there's a circle. And within that circle, we see kind of a unique setting. I'd like to have a large tree in the middle of that space and a lot of shade, and have musical instruments here. So have some sound play in that area. We want to have kind of that, really make sure that everything that we do involves as many senses as possible, because that's what creates memorable, exciting places for not only the kids, but us adults, right? And we want parents to engage their kids in these activities. So making these things fun and attractive to not only the kids, but even to their parents and grandparents to play with the kids. The next area is the water play and Explore Creek area. So this is very similar to what we presented to you the last time, but we've given a little bit more of a contemporary twist. The main kind of splash pad zone, you'll see that there's these 3 creeks. The main creek going down the middle, I would like to kind of in the pavement, put in like embossed letters that says Deer Creek in it. And then the other creek that's further up towards the north, that would be Shady Grove Creek. And then the last one coming in would be Black Creek. So even though this isn't like a direct, template of the creeks that are through Brentwood, the notion that you have all these kind of streams that come through and kind of come together in the Brentwood bound neighborhood here is something I think would be fun to interpret and make it delightful and fun. So what creates those streams would be is the way we would design the concrete in this area. In some of those areas, we might be able to channelize it, where kids could use the little sluice gate elements that allow you to back the water up and let the water go and kind of create your own paths with the water. You'll see later on, there's a number of spray elements that we're taking into consideration here. But this place is where the hub would be as well. And so we see water even up by the upper pavilion, being able to create some play value up by the pavilion, but then go down to the lower level where the main splash pad area is too. You also see there's a number of sun chairs there. We want this to be kind of hip and cool and fun and hang out, in the sun in some cases, and hang out in the shade when you don't want to be in the sun. So you'll see here that there's these, wonderful kind of public lounges that would be affixed into the concrete. We wouldn't have them as movable deck chairs, but we like the idea of kind of these social areas to be able to sit and enjoy the water's edge, if you will. And then we've built into the hillside here a number of amphitheater seating style, again, hearkening back to kind of the modern interpretation of the quarry and the rock walls, and making that kind of interesting and fun, but also make it a place to sit and hang out and enjoy this wonderful public space. And then the last thing I want to point out is you'll see there is the main entry into the play area, but there's also a water recovery tank here. Again, very similar to what we did at O'Day Park, where one of our options would be to take all of the potable water that's been used by the spray ground and then put it back to the kind of above ground cistern that could then be used for irrigation. And of course, that's perfect because when it's hottest and driest, that's when kids are out in the splash, the splash pads area. And then we'll be able to use that for irrigation. But then we also have kind of bioswales in this area that leads to rain gardens. So we want to make sure we interpret all of that and make it not only just a lovely, memorable setting, but also a performative landscape. So when you put all those spaces together, this map here begins to show you that. There isn't like one, if you look at it, this is a series of collective big ideas that occur around that hub. And so we want that to be very intricate and unique and exploratory. So we're really excited about how the plan has come together. And the topography is really something that's going to make this really special. So again, when you make a destination play facility, it's not just picking out playground pieces. It's really everything pulled together. It's the ephemeral quality of the landscape. It's how the pavement works and the pavement selections that we have. It's the topography and how we use the earthwork in this area. It's really thinking about some of the special seasoning that goes into this that makes this unique. So let's go to the next slide, because I think one of those unique things is what I call the architectural vocabulary. So we have 4 locations that we would like to introduce architecture. And the one is the main hub up on the upper right-hand corner of that slide. That's the area that cantilevers out over the spray ground area. And you'll see that we're using a composite plastic, what do they call that? Gluon, or it's material that would when the sun comes through the colored plexiglass, there's a better name than that, sorry. But it would, the acrylics, and it would go through there and it would cast that color onto the ground. So it serves as a shade umbrella in this case, adding color into the space. Right below that are these entry archways. Again, the idea of casting that color onto the ground, making it a welcoming, youthful space to come through, whether you want to have the park name on there or the main donor's name on there. We could certainly incorporate that into this. And then lastly, the other one is more of a cantilevered shade structure that's up by the family play area. And again, we see that as an opportunity to introduce kind of the same architectural vocabulary with unique metal, structure design, and introducing the color into the space. So we're excited about this vocabulary because I think that's something that's going to be super unique. If some of you have been to the Centene Bank building, there's a connector that goes from the garage of the Centene building. There's a connector that goes from the main tower to the garage. And I believe there's a canopy there that has a very similar treatment. So we would like to use colors that reflect the Brentwood logo and things like that. The next slide is, in addition to the architectural vocabulary, is just the materiality of the space. We want to think about materials not only being the architectural elements, but even the ephemeral quality of the plant material. Thinking about the seasonality of that. We mentioned already the attitude of the glulam beams, or the use of stone and the use of steel, and thinking about how all of that can make this a very interesting place to be and very memorable. And then one of the things that I know you guys as a board, which I really appreciate, is your attention to sustainability and the performative landscape. We have a unique opportunity to not only educate people about the Deer Creek watershed and the biofiltration and the rain gardens that occur within here. We also see this as an opportunity to think about the performative landscape and think about pollinator gardens and attracting selecting plant material that attracts butterflies, thinking about shade. I think one of the things that we can do that would be of great value and great benefit is the reuse of soil. So one of the things Craig's going to talk about is they dig out the pond for the amphitheater area. Let's use that soil and rework that soil as part of the topography that we're going to be doing with the play facility. So that's a great way to think about sustainability. And then use of rock and material that are all local or regional are going to be very important to what we think about that. And then lastly, and I already talked a little bit about water recovery. The next slide, we do think that everything that we do, everything from the landform to the way we select the pavement and all that, I personally feel that is part of landscape art, just an artful expression, the way we're designing and sculpting this space. But certainly having pieces and maybe anticipating where art could occur, should you have some either donors or part of the Brentwood art program to maybe consider at a later date to add art into the space would be quite wonderful. Obviously, you've seen the dragonfly. I personally love the dragonfly piece of art. There's a piece here on the upper left-hand corner that's a kaleidoscope viewer. There's a bowl in the middle where you can put pine cones or flowers or plant material in there, and you look through the kaleidoscope viewer, and it's like being on the Yellow Submarine again. I got jokes for the older folks in the audience. And so what we would like to do, because sometimes it's hard to really understand this by plan, we would like to show you a video that we've put together to help really walk you through or fly you through these spaces for you to get a better understand of how dynamic and how unique this is going to be. And I'm not going to narrate much, but the idea of this first loop is to give you an idea, a little bit more of a bird's eye view of how these 5 spaces kind of work with one another and how they're connected together. Certainly one of the takeaways is the topography that I would like to see you capture here in this animation. And that there's, the water play area is like the rocky bluff that separates the upper from the lower. And so I like the metaphor of that and how that space kind of looks out towards the event pavilion. And certainly thinking about the connectivity from the amphitheater and how all that flows together. I think one of the criticisms, I don't think it's a criticism, but you think you could get lost in here. And I think part of that is somewhat intentional. There will be clear zones for the kids to be in. So if mom and dad want to make sure they stay in the family play area, it's fairly well defined. And so that's important to kind of the wayfinding and how we think about this. So one of the things we think about is just the arrival. Coming from the parking lot, we want this to be just a place of just right off the bat, you get it. This is Brentwood. This is something super unique. So thinking about how we kind of put that brand and identity right out front, I think is important. But then draw people in, right? You just want to go run through those gates, that gateway, and go into that space right away. And so that central hub is kind of that pivot point where there's a game lawn on one side and then the overlook of the water play space. And so we see this being a great visual interplay. And I think some of you went to Veterans Tribute Park and saw that overlook there. So kind of a similar way to connect people. And then using that topography that we're building up, we have an opportunity to do a climbing wall that connects you from the play space to the Crazy Climb area. And then when you're on the adventure spine, at the very end of that adventure spine, there's the sound play area and that lovely, that's where I want my specimen tree there, just a nice tree and a bench and just really draw you out. And from here, you'll be able to see the amphitheater and the lake and really take part in the overall park. And then certainly the idea that a bridge could come out over the GRG trail and be another form of overlook that really culminates in viewing and in a net climber area. So the invitation to come in from the amphitheater side, there's your zip line, coming down the zip line here. When you get to the end of the zip line, you can immediately go to all other kinds of activities. Climb up the hill slide. You can come up and go up the cargo net to the one of the other climbing pieces, or go to the Crazy Climb big piece in the center. So as you come up these paths, this is the accessible path, you'll see there's a number of nice, quiet landscape berm areas here with lawn. And then in this area here, you're able to come down the hillside, and then make your way along one of the adventure play deck areas. And you see here the adventure play deck, it has a number of net climbers and tunnels and ways to transfer there off of that wall. So you could be in a wheelchair and get right out to that platform possibly. So there's a number of ways we'll be looking at that when we work with vendors. And then really from the kind of the family play area, you can see that one piece that I spoke about that has the glulam beam kind of sized appropriately for younger kids. The idea that there's lots of good open play area and activities for kids to play together was thought through. So that gives you the 360 view and a few other times. So I know we made your head spin all over the place. Hopefully you were able to understand where you were in the model. But again, hopefully what you're seeing there is the culmination of what creates a destination. The topography, again, the walkways, the materials, the activities, making it high play value, accessible, inclusive. All of those things have been really top of mind for the design team and for Eric and his team as we came to this conclusion to be able to get this presented to you. So what I'm going to do now is hand it over back to Craig, and he's going to talk to you a little bit about the bid process and where we are budget-wise.
Great, thanks, Ted. So you guys challenged us with coming up with a project that's $5 million, and as you can see, we squeezed about everything we could to as close as $5 million as possible. So right now, the base project's estimated to be at $4.97 million. And just like we did on the GRG connector project, we wanted to have some add alternates. Hopefully pricing starts stabilizing in 6 months when we bid out the whole project. So at least there would be some options if you wanted to add some things in. We came up with these add alternates because some of them could be projects that if they're not put in now, they could be put in years in the future. Also, we believe that these add alternates don't affect the play value, which is something that's this whole project is about. So going through these alternates, again, there's 5 of them. One of them is alternate 1, that's the Family Fun Pavilion. So as Ted talked about, there's a big pavilion in the center called the Hub. So you have one big pavilion. This is another pavilion. So it would be a nice addition for the play area for the younger children, but it's not a necessity, and that value is roughly $250,000. Also, you know, there is the new event lawn pavilion right down, so something else to consider for you all. Alternate 2 is the water capture system. That was that big steel cistern that had the Brentwood sign on it that you guys also saw at O'Day Park. That's valued at $200,000. That would capture the water, then utilize that water as irrigation throughout the Brentwood Park. Alternate 3 is that big wooden overlook that was like a Veterans Tribute that you all walked on. That's valued at $400,000. Alternate 5 is the entry arch, along with alternate 4. Each one of those are those entry arches that Ted walked through, which are those acrylic rainbow tops and a structure. So again, doesn't affect play value. It does add a lot of nice feel to the park, but it could be something you guys do later if you didn't want to do it now. Also, Eric's going to talk about funding opportunities, and you know, maybe there's a donor that wants to purchase and get naming rights on certain aspects. So that's why we took this approach. In regards to the procurement approach, this kind of ties into some of the approvals that we're looking for. So El Keely, who's the contractor in the Phase 1 project, they're supposed to start digging the pond tomorrow. That's not going to happen with the rain, but regardless, it's going to start next week, and it's a several week effort to dig out that big pond. And thinking about sustainability and also cost, it would make sense for Brentwood to capture what's estimated close to 30,000 cubic yards, about 3,000 dump trucks, and take it from that pond right over to the playground, rather than pay for El Keely to take that dirt off site, and then later you're paying a contractor to bring dirt on site. So there is a essence of time here because they got to dig the pond, and that pond is right next to this, so it's just efficient. So one of the approvals we're looking for is, you know, that you all just conceptually like this approach of this project, in that way we can at least start grading, and that gets it to the rough grade levels. So that doesn't mean that, you know, all these other things we can't tweak, you know, like types of play equipment, stuff like that, but it just starts setting up those big berms that Ted was going through. So that's one part of the procurement is, let's try to capture some of this dirt that's going to start being utilized next week for the first several weeks, and save Brentwood some money by bringing some dirt over here and start establishing some of those rough grades. The other component that Ted talked about earlier as well is procuring the playground equipment. So that playground equipment, which are all those big climbing structures, the goal is to bid that out early. And the reason is that we don't know exactly what the products are. We don't want to have SWT bid out sole source products, because then you just get one bidder, and that bidder knows they're the only bidder, they bring up pricing. So we always want to encourage competition. So like Ted talked about earlier, we want to show them some types of play structures and some goals and objectives, and have these companies bring bids to you all, and that ultimately we would then release that company to provide that playground equipment. That playground equipment's estimated, I think, around $800,000. So it's a fraction of the $5 million. But that's important because once that contractor is selected, they actually design those play equipments. And as you notice, some of those play equipments are tied into the architectural components of this project. So they, in essence, become part of the design team. And that's why we have to bid that out early, because we can't bid out the rest of the project until that playground equipment is selected. We know what they're actually providing, and they spend a couple months with SWT to actually finalize the design. And then that gets us to the final part, which is we bid out the rest of the project, which is roughly, you know, $4 million. And then that goes to a typical general contractor that then does all the other architectural and structural elements, and then installs that playground equipment that is provided by others. So I hope I presented that in a way that makes sense. So that's kind of the procurement. It's a little different for these type of custom destination playgrounds, but there's a strategy to this, and it works really well when it's done effectively. So going to the next slide. So schedule. The next step after tonight is the November 1st Board of Aldermen meeting. So the same presentation will be done. Hopefully we have some recommendations from this committee. Then the playground bidding process would start in December, and that would be done in January. So we would bring those bids to you either that middle meeting of January or the first meeting of February. Between November and March, we'd be working on site design and permitting. And then the whole project, that last phase, the architectural and structural component, goes out to bid in March. So that would allow the whole project to start construction in April, and we're estimating it to be a year-long project, so it could be done and open April of '23. This aligns with the whole goal of opening up Brentwood Park. You know, while the other projects are targeted to be done end of '22, you don't want to open a park in the winter. It's also good to give the landscape a few months to actually get established, and it's nice to have a big opening in the spring when the park looks great and when it's actually got the right weather conditions for that. So this would align with that potential opening of the park that you guys can work on the fine details later. So a couple approvals that we're looking for. One is the approval to start doing that rough grading I talked about. We don't want to lose this ability to save money and just bring that dirt from the pond over this area. So we just need you guys to just say, hey, conceptually, we like this plan. Like I said, this doesn't make everything set in stone. This is just helps develop some of those berms, so that way we can save the city money. The other approval is to allow the playground equipment to start that bidding process. So again, we go to the board in November, but it gets us ready to work on those bid documents and take that out to bid. And then the last one is we like to, this is schematic design. We like to get all your comments and your approval of this design, because then the design team goes to the next phase, which is design development. That's 60% design. And then the team would come back to you all, just like we did the event lawn. You could make some final tweaks at that point as well. So 3 approvals we're seeking tonight. And then just one other thing. Eric would like to talk to you all about, while this is a $4.9 million project, we have submitted for grants. We, like every other project, are hoping to bring in some funds from either public agencies or private donors. And I'll let Eric touch on that more, and then we'll have Ted close it out. Thanks.
Thanks. And so really what I just wanted to kind of touch base on is obviously we're not done looking for funding for this project. We have a grant that's outstanding right now. We hope we'll hear by the end of this month whether we'll be awarded that $370,000. Beyond that, there's at least 3 other grants I know. Unfortunately, they're all beginning of the year. So we just have to wait. And it was all about, we couldn't do it last year because you have to construct within a year. So one's Land Water Conservation Fund. Another one is the Ameren and NRPA Water Building Communities with Water Fund. So there's a couple grants like that out there that I think we'd have a really good chance to receive. And ultimately, you know, our goal is to look for sponsorship and naming rights. And you look at what we need to do is have a, you know, at least a concept, a final concept that's been approved that we can then start putting on paper and taking it out places. And it's not just the playground. So, you know, you look at the playground, you look at an overall naming rights for the entire playground, and we have 2 pavilions. And so, you know, we'll have different funding levels. So, you know, if the one for the full playground is maybe a little bit too much, hey, we have this wonderful family pavilion that you might want to give a sponsorship of $250,000 to. And I think that would be a very successful way of going through it. And at the same time, we'll start going out for the main event pavilion as well. We haven't been able to do that. We have design, but we don't know what's next to it. And knowing what's next to it will also help us sell that pavilion as well. So I'm terribly excited and anxious to start going and getting that stuff done and be able to say, hey, here's some extra dollars that we can bring to this project. The whole project, Brentwood Bound, not just the playground. Ed, finish it up.
All right. Well, I'm just going to stop right there and just obviously you can tell that the entire team is very excited about where we are on the project, and we'll just open it up to questions for you.
Yeah, what I propose is why don't we ask questions and then we'll take the 3 action items that we need after that. So I'll open it up. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I think, one of the big questions that I have is regarding the funding. I know that we approved to do the design of a $50 million, or $5 million, sorry, not 50 million, $5 million playground, with the intent that we're not committing to that because we don't have it funded yet, right? I think originally when we talked about it, you all had presented some options of if we had to scale back or phase it in order to make it a little bit more affordable based on whatever factors, contribute to that. Did you all, now that you've spent time really getting into this, do you have a recommendation of if we got to a point where we decided that we needed to sort of bring this back a little, what could be altered or modified to get it a little bit lower, knowing that then there might be some opportunity for growth in the future? That's my first question. And I think that, as it relates to berms and dirt and all that, I think in my mind, it seems like whether it's a 3 million or a 5 million, that you would probably still keep a lot of that natural design into it. Second question that I had was with the water play areas, and this is more for probably in general, is the water running all the time or is it just on during times that the park is open?
Right. Yeah. So it would have a timer only when the park's open, but it also have an actuator device. So even if there's no kids there, the water may not be going at all.
Okay.
So you'd be pushing a button. So like up above where the hub pavilion is, you saw there's some water elements there. There'd probably be a separate actuator up there for that.
Okay.
And then that water would come. So yes, we would be very mindful about the timing and how long it was going to be on. So you got to hit the actuator again, and it doesn't run for 10 minutes. It maybe only runs for 30 seconds or a minute. So I think we have that kind of control. As far as kind of scaling back, the big piece would be the scaling back is actually taking a bite at the different rooms, right? So you have these 5 different zones. And you could look at it strategically and say, well, do we just hold off on one of those zones for the future? In other words, go ahead and sculpt the land, like you said, create the space, and maybe it's just lawn temporarily. But that would be a strategy. And, again, besides the strategy that Craig had talked about, where you kind of get into more individual pieces. So we can break this out in a bid form. Possibly, although once you start doing a lot of bid tabs and bid forms, sometimes that scares the contractor and the prices go up. But I think if we're more strategic, like right before it goes out the bid, if you want to take out one of those outdoor room spaces, that would be one that would have substantial savings. Wouldn't be my, I think that would probably be the best way to do it without having to redesign, quite frankly.
And if I can just add on to that, Ted, the only concern I have as someone who's going to be operating that is if you take out something and you say, we can put it in later, well, then the economy of scale will be much larger if you try to do it a second time. And then how do you construct while you're trying to run an open playground? And if you're talking about, hey, let's take out the family zone, how do you get, equipment and construction through that at that time? So, we're very mindful of what we're doing, obviously. I think it's also, we need to be mindful of how that place will function once it opens as well.
Absolutely. And the last question that I had was one that was kind of inspired by the fact that just seeing some of your renders and showing, I think we've seen the GRG trail on paper just drawn in lines, but when you actually start seeing people on bikes and skateboards or whatever,
the scale.
Did you consider any bike play into the into the playground itself, meaning, bike pump tracks or anything like that? Have you done those type of things integrated in, knowing this is really unique right next to the GRG trail? Just curious on that.
That's interesting thought. We did that pump track on the other side of the creek there. That's on the GRG trail. I always get a little nervous when you bring bikes into a playground, because then they'll use the whole darn playground as a bike.
Yeah, no, good point.
I've not done that. I think that's almost like, I would rather have you do that somewhere else down the trail and not intermix those two elements.
Good point, yep.
Again, just to add on top of that, there's something that, staff talked about early on, but having the pump track right across the creek at Webster, we do want to make this unique. And while it's playground equipment, I mean, I feel it's really an attraction.
Yeah,
And so the attraction is the different unique pieces. And yeah, there is a pump track literally a quarter of a mile down the road.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't mean it might not fit in somewhere else in Brentwood if we continue, to expand our greenways. But I just didn't feel it was right for this part.
No, it's understandable, and I think, given the plan for potential of a skate park or something like that somewhere else, maybe that's more suited, like you said, in that area than a playground. All right, great.
Other questions?
Sorry. Let me repeat myself.
Okay, there we go.
I didn't have my mic on, I'm sorry. In order to go out for a bidding of equipment, we really need to be set on that $5 million price tag. Correct?
Well, I think at some point there is a point of no return. We would get those bids in and bid tabs and look at that, and maybe that's kind of the critical point to make that decision. I wouldn't, obviously make that decision during the primary general contractor bid, but I think if you could make that decision when we get all the bids back from the playground equipment people.
And does that base include all the landscaping you see there, the purchase of trees and?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then finally, as far as, you mentioned the ADA path, what type of play facilities are available for the ADA individual that may be taking that path?
So a lot of the equipment that you saw in those pictures are ground-based activities rather than, post and platform systems. And the stuff that we do have that's more platform oriented can come off the ADA path to there. I think one of the things that we'll be doing is when we assess the bids that come back on the playground equipment, we would probably bring Terry Ryan. No, do I get that right,
Johnson.
Eric?
Terry Johnson.
Johnson, thank you. Terry Johnson into the picture to help us evaluate those pieces and make sure that we have a good balance of, active play that's inclusive as well. But a lot of that, what you saw, was fairly inclusive.
And if I can add two things. One is I gave Terry Johnson a sneak preview because I want to make sure, especially some of the climbing pieces, her thoughts and things like that. And she is extremely excited about the pieces that have been chosen and their inclusivity, not only for children with disabilities, but sensory deprivation and everything, any type of inclusion that she's working with. So she's seen it, she understands we're still tweaking it and it's not the final, but I wanted to say, especially with the two bigger pieces, whether or not she would approve of those, and she's fully on board. I do want to say one thing when you asked about the playground equipment and things like that. I just to put out there, the grant that we put out, because we're still going through design, the easiest thing to do for the grant was to do for playground equipment. So we need to be careful about, if we cut it back to, $300,000, then we'd have issues with the grant. But some of the idea of the playground equipment was that was the easiest and best way to get a grant in the time that we were working on design.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, Nancy.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty amazing looking site. And the one thing I was a little bummed to see was an add-on where those entryways, I think those are so interesting and add
Yeah.
such cool continuity to it, but maybe there's a way to get that. Um, so as a parent with older kids, but I have 3 children, and when they were younger, they never wanted to play on the same thing at a playground, and they went all over the place. So
Right.
you've got all this tree stuff, and I know with littler kids, you would probably be focused on the playground, but when they run off, it doesn't look like you can see where they're going and how with this seems like more trees than some of the parks that we saw that you've designed in St. Charles County. And what are your thoughts on the safety and of the kids and the sanity of the parents?
Yeah. Well, good point. No, we've been talking about that. I will tell you the animation, that's probably trees that are about 10 years, 15 years old. So certainly that's incremental with the trees. But I will say that the idea was that we have the two overlooks. Idea that from the family play, like let's say if I was a parent and I had one older kid that you knew could go out by themselves, you certainly allow that and have the younger kid and have more of a mindful eye on the younger child. The hub pavilion, it gives us probably the best 360 view of all those spaces. Will there be a sight line that's going to be slightly blocked by a tree? I'm sure there will be. The parks that you saw were pretty young parks too. Those trees were pretty small. I think the density of planting that we're showing here is fairly typical of the density that we had both at O'Day and Veterans Tribute. It's just those were very young trees as well. But certainly, I think the idea that there's like these series of home bases that the parent could be at to make sure that the kid knew where to come back to. But then being able to have eyes, whether you're if the kids are down in the water play area, you can easily see them from that upper area. You could probably see the kids even in the family play zone. Where it gets a little bit more hard is we do have a lot of various nooks and crannies and spaces within the more crazy climb adventure area.
And the one thing to add on to what Ted said, I mean, if you think about when, I know Ted and Klaus and Zach were very intentional, and they talked about the connections from one place to another. So you look at the stepping stone connections, and
good point.
with so many
Yeah.
connections, that also increases sightline, because you have to have that sightline through those connections. So I think the connections were done purposely for play and also for sightline as well.
Yeah, you can get from one place to the other quickly should you need to. Yeah, good point.
And then I'll just sort of add on to the scope or the financial size of the playground. I know there was some discussion when we approved the design of the $5 million playground, and I know I've certainly heard from some residents about, well, why would we spend $5 million on a playground? And I think they think it's going to be like plastic playground equipment, and how could that cost $5 million? And so I actually think it's phenomenal, but this is back to, I haven't had this hat on in a long time, Craig, but like this is where the overall budget and really understanding how much money we have left, where those pots of monies are going to be going, would, I think, really help us make a good decision about what money we think we can allocate for the playground. So I'm back to like when I first joined the board hat and when I complained all the time. So.
Yeah, sure. And we can go through that more at the November 1st meeting. I mean, right now, you guys have $4.8 million in contingency. We can't spend all that because we need to have that set aside for certain things we've talked about before. But in that bottom part of that report, the additional funding sources, so this is money not put towards anything, we currently have $4.8 million. So just in that additional funding sources that's unallocated for anything, we've got almost as much money to handle this overall project. And we're hopeful that when we come back on November 1st, we also have some good news about a grant. And like Eric said, there's a bunch of other opportunities coming up too. So, yes, we think we've got an avenue, but we don't want Brentwood to pay for this whole thing. That's never been the objective and still isn't today.
Right. Well, just, and even if we know that, I mean, we don't want to pay for the whole thing, but, and we certainly want to be able to get as many grants as possible. But,
Yeah.
you know, if all the grants don't come back, we need to know that we have money to pay for it. We have enough money
You're absolutely
left
right.
over for the
Yeah.
other unexpected expenses. So, and that will help us make a good decision here.
Yep, understood.
I keep harping on this, and I've harped on this for 3 years now. I feel like we can get naming rights dollars. I mean, I think we can find sponsorships for multiple things in this park, but I have to have a finished design to go out and do that. And so I've been waiting for 3 years to get to this point, because now I can get out and I can hopefully come back to you guys and say, hey, guess what? We have X more dollars and now X more dollars. And, but I have to have something to sell.
Yeah, so I'll go. I mean, watching that video, I got chills, and 90% of it was because it's so exciting. I mean, I love the elevation changes and the hills and everything. I mean, that is so different than, you know, anything that is around here. And the other 10% is because I'm scared of heights, and it was kind of perspective of like high up. So I mean, this, when I visualized what this was going to be, I mean, this is it. I mean, this put Brentwood on the map. This is why we're going to rename that Brentwood Park. This is going to be like, oh, you live in Brentwood? That's where that huge, it's not a playground. It's like, it is a destination.
An experience. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm blown away. So, you know, kind of drilling in on Steve's question about like how, if we do go out for bid on the playground equipment, it seems to me that we're not really committing to anything other than the time for the staff to put together the bid packages and everything. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, like all of our bids, we don't have to exercise anything, right? But it seems prudent to me to go do that, because then we would know what the equipment is, start to understand what the actual costs are, start sharpening the pencil on this, but yet we would not be really committed to anything. And I think it would be smart to keep that dirt there. I mean, just because even if we do de-scope it for some reason, I mean, it still seems like a hill is still exciting for kids, you know, and if we have a hill, we have a hill. So whether it's a slide on there or not. And I'm super excited about the zip line too, by the way. Thank you very much. and Nancy, I'll tell you, I took my kids when they were pretty young to this place in Tulsa called The Gathering, and it's like 40 acres of this. And it was the most stressful day of my life. But my children loved it, and, you know, I look fondly on it, and I survived it. So, you know, I feel you on that pretty bad, so.
If I could just add a couple more things real quick, you know, for me, from the Director of Parks and Recreation, this is my vision of Brentwood Bound too. I am a soccer player, I love soccer, but this gives us not an attraction, not just a soccer field. It's not a playground, it's an attraction. And it incorporates with the rest of the park. So when we have, you know, a summer concert series on the vent lawn, we can program activities in the playground, scavenger hunts, things like that during that event. It becomes an active part. It's not just a playground. And staff is incredibly excited about that opportunity and what we can do with it. I can go on and on and on. This is a dream to be able to see if we can bring to fruition, and ultimately, as we say, I think this also helps drive economic development, because people will come to come see this attraction. So this is.
I have one more question, Steve. We'll get to you. So Eric, is there enough space here? I know, you know, in the very first preliminary design, we had a bunch of little spots, and the way I went away from that conversation is the thought that we would be renting out lots of different areas. You know, I mean, there would be tons of birthday parties and stuff. I mean, is there enough space like that here?
I mean, you think about it, we have 3 different pavilions. If you take the main event pavilion, then you took the hub, and then also the family pavilion. So, I mean, I think there's plenty of space if we want to use it as a rentable space. There's also plenty of places if you just want to come out with your kids and sit down and have 5 kids and have a little picnic on the rock ledge there overlooking the water. You can do that too.
And I guess you could have the event building as well, theoretically.
Exactly.
Right there at the bathrooms. Okay. Steve?
Yeah, what Eric said earlier, I think this could be the catalyst that really gets redevelopment going down there along Manchester Road. It seems to be kind of not really moving along right now for many reasons, but I think having this down there is that, you know, just being able to show the design of this coming, I think will really attract some possible development down there. Thanks.
Yeah, Jeff?
I had one more question. When you talked about the alternates, and you talk about them being like the pavilion and some of the other stuff, are you not So we would have the platforms, but not the structure above it. Is that what I'm?
Correct. The base bid includes the concrete pad
Okay.
right now. And again, we wanted to make sure Craig and SWT took a lot of time and effort in the current bidding climate. And the last thing we want to do is bring you a project that is going to be overbid when we finally bring you the bid. So that's why we're hoping, prices come down. As Craig said, I'm starting to hear woods coming down a little bit. I don't know if Craig's hearing the same thing. So we're starting to hear some of that already. We're hopeful by the time we bid, we'll see it and then be able to fit some of those in. And again, I'm hoping that we'll have a lot more money through sponsorships and grants to kind of have that discussion at that time too. But we
So-
just want to make sure we have that in place.
So why, just help me with the rationale of why you would have the family fun pavilion as an alternate and not the hub as an alternate?
And Ted can help me with this one too, but the idea is a hub is a main active player. I mean, if you sit here at the hub, you can see 360 the entire playground. So we thought that this part becomes a little bit more important for parents if we wanted to use it as a rentable space. You even have, like we said, the game lawn that becomes an active space there as well. And while this pavilion is kind of away from the rest of the thing besides the family pavilion. Again, as I talked to Bola today, I think that pavilion is my number one goal to see if we can find funding for. If we talk about naming rights.
The one in the middle, the hub?
This one up there to get additional funding to make sure we
Yeah,
can
the
get that done.
family.
Oh,
Yeah.
family, okay.
Yeah, the family
fun
pavilion.
pavilion, got it.
I mean,
Yeah, I think,
I think Ted's already, considering the SWT family pavilion. I mean, I think
Yeah.
it just rings, Ted.
I'm on it. I'm going to the boats tonight.
Yeah,
Yeah, Jeff, I think that was my thinking, was that the hub, does give you that 360 view, and that probably, it's the larger one too. It's probably more like a pavilion, where the other one is more like a shade structure, cantilevered shade structure. If we don't do that shade structure right away, I would at least probably create some landscape space up there and put a grove of trees, so that the overlook would have a grove of trees with furnishings below it. So, I wouldn't want that just to be a big giant pad of concrete.
okay.
Will this video of the fly-through be available somewhere?
It's a very large video. We'll have
Can we
to
put
get
it
I
on
think it's-
YouTube or something? Put it on YouTube or something? I mean, so we can share it?
Actually, we can do that with this meeting.
Yeah,
Let's
we can get-
explore it.
Yeah, we just want to make sure if it's appropriate to put it out there now before it went to the board. If you guys are okay with us putting it out now, we're more than happy to work on that this week.
I mean, it's in public record right now.
It is, so we can still put it out as part of the meeting. We'll figure out how to do that.
We've got an IT expert in the room too, right? He might be able to help us out. Or
Okay.
an audio-visual expert. Yeah.
Okay,
I don't know.
there's a project.
I mean, if you just threw it up on YouTube as a 30%, I don't know.
We should be able to do that. We did that the last time, so I don't see an issue with this.
All right, any other questions? And then we'll take the 3 decisions that are needed to be made, and Craig, you might have to help me walk through those. Any other questions? All right, so let's start with the first one. That is the approval to go ahead and just move the dirt over the path instead of driving it out to Creve Coeur. So I don't know if somebody wants to make a motion on that.
I'll make that motion that we leverage the dirt that we're going to be pulling from the excavation of the lake to stage it for use in the future playground.
Second.
All right, I got a motion by Jeff and a second by Nancy. And Craig, I'm looking for you as the head knob. That's what you need, right? All right, any questions, discussion? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, the second one is approval to go out for bid on this specific playground equipment. I think we have some questions on that. So I think we're looking for a motion to give them the authority to go out for bid on specific playground equipment.
I'll make a motion that we authorize the staff and SWT to go out for bid on playground equipment and bring that back to us.
Second.
All right, we got a motion by Nancy and a second by Steve. Any discussion, any questions? Yeah, Jeff?
Yeah, and just help us out with what's the cost to put together those, to do this? Do you think?
So it's all in SWT's contract. So we don't have like an actual cost broken out, because it's like, here's the overall cost to do a $5 million playground full design.
So we're taking the 30% designs that we have here with conceptual placement of items and
Yes.
saying, what would you do with it, or what kind of,
So this is the approval to strictly bid out the playground equipment,
Okay.
which, again, is around $800,000. In that way, that's just what we are projecting the bids to come in at. And like Nancy said, we have to bring those bids back anyway to you all for approval. We're just looking to actually put together the bid package, put it out to bid, so we can actually get bids, and then we can bring it back to you all for next steps.
Any other questions or comments?
do you have a clarification comment on that? I'd like to hear from you as well.
Comment of how that bidding process, how
Use the microphone.
that will work is
The
that-
mic.
Oh, how that thing that will work is that we create for each equipment that you have seen tonight, kind of a performance spec around it, what it needs to accomplish, what kind of play value it has, and what kind of elements are part of that. We would also provide the bidder with the AutoCAD drawing for the safety zone. And we probably would tell them also, you need to be within a certain budget for this piece. And we would do that for every piece. And then the potential bidders would bid us a piece, hopefully, that's very similar to what we have seen tonight, and that provides us with the same experiences.
And then on that you brought up the safety zones, so they would also be able to tell us what, safety protocols go for each piece, so that we can determine whether or not it meets what we feel taking on any liability or whatever might have. Okay.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion to authorize going out for bid on all this. So all those in favor, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Nay?
Did someone make a motion?
Yeah. Nancy and I second.
Okay.
Third decision was proceeding to the 60%. That would incorporate using what
And I guess it's my turn, so I will put my head on the block. Motion to go to, was it 60% design approval?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion from Steve and a second from Nancy. My question would be, once again, I feel like this isn't committing us on this, and we would still have.
Your mic's cutting out.
I'm sorry. My question is basically that does not commit us, if we do go the 60%, to any final decisions on funding or scope of this yet. It's just a finalization and reiteration of what we have here, a next iteration of it. Is that correct? Okay. Any other questions, discussion? Yeah, Jeff?
Is there any reason we would want to just hold until we get back some of the bid numbers from the, I mean, what's the rush, I guess, could this decision wait? I mean, I understand the decision for the dirt and the decision to get moving on the playground equipment and just make sure it's within scope. But I'm just curious,
Ted, I'll look for some support, but it's really just maintaining schedule. In
Yeah.
order to go out to bid in April, we need SWT to be working on design along with prepping for this new bid of the playground equipment. So there's some upfront time to get ready for that. If the playground equipment, I think we said that the bid was due in January. So if we just waited until we got the playground equipment in January, then started, I don't believe they could complete the design in 3 months to go out to bid in April. If you can't start construction in April, it won't be ready for the grand opening in April 23. So that's kind of some of the milestones.
yeah, I guess the concern I have is authorizing that now without having talked to the full board yet. And so if November, the November 1st meeting, at that point, maybe, we're not losing too much time, we can,
Oh,
you know what
okay.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's the only question I had.
Yeah, Nancy?
Well, so I have a question. I mean, haven't we sort of already paid for this in the scope of what we approved
We
to
have.
pay SWT. So it's not, we're not spending any new money. We've already
No.
approved the money. So I feel like this is just sort of keeping us moving along.
Correct.
I got you. Yep.
Yeah, it
You're
was
right.
all part of the contract that the
Good point.
board approved.
Okay.
Their contract just states that they need to get approval once they get to a certain milestone. Tonight was a schematic design before they go on to the next one to give you all the opportunity to provide comments, just like we did at the event lawn building. So that's why we're even asking this. You know, otherwise a lot of projects you just keep going, but we want to create that pause for you all to say, hey, I like this, I don't like this, and provide those comments.
There's 2 weeks from the November 1st meeting, so approving that tonight, I don't know that, much work will get done as well, but I think it's a message, right?
Yeah.
That you all are all in support of moving this forward,
Correct.
if that's the message you want to send.
Steve?
Eric, does this 60% get you what you need to start looking for naming right participants and grants? And
Yeah, I mean, if tonight and at November 1st meeting, the board says this is the overall scope of what we want to look at, and especially the 2-acre aspect of it, and especially the topography, if pieces change a little bit, we could still, I can work with that. I can take basically what we have today, and once I get it to 60% and start working on the things I need to do.
Any other questions, comments?
I just still think that, I'm sure we'll have very passionate thoughts from some of the other board members, and I think we all are pretty excited about it and look at it's beautiful work and done a great job. So I just want to make sure that other board members are able to weigh in on the finer points of it as you start to go into the 60%, so that we're not missing that opportunity, which I'm guessing you still have. Like Bola said, it's not like if we did that tonight,
Right.
There's not opportunity for them to weigh in on the design as well, so.
I think what this does, like anything we bring to committees, we ask you to make a recommendation so that we know what we're presenting to the board. It's really no different.
Any other questions, discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All right,
Anybody opposed? Nay? Okay. Fantastic.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. All right, where were we? Okay, we'll move on to item 5B, if you guys do need a break.
Oh, you can keep.
We'll move on to item 5B of the city administrator report, stormwater management plan and open house.
Dan, this is another exciting topic.
Sorta. But yes, it is.
Yeah, I can't really trump that, so. Stormwater's not very exciting. It's not playgrounds. If you recall, we already discussed this about Gonzalez doing the stormwater master plan. That was back in August. We had a kickoff meeting with them last week, so some of the things we wanted to talk about tonight that are important or upcoming. If you look in your packet, there's a series of different files there, but one of the most important would be the open house that we have staged. So that'll be coming up in November. So November 16th and November 17th from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. over at the rec center. There'll be an open house. And what that will allow residents to do is fill out one of these questionnaires, or they can take it with them, because we're not pressuring them to fill it out then and there. If they can, great. If not, they can take it home. We'll have it electronically as well. But what we're really looking for is comments from anyone that has flooding issues, whether it's from gutters and downspouts from an adjacent property, whether it's from lack of storm sewers on their street, anything that's stormwater related we want to know about. We already met with Gonzalez and we've pinpointed, say, 42 to 50 locations just from us writing stuff down with Public Works, whether it's some pumps that drain out along the curb and then it freezes, or things of that nature. So, and then areas of York Village. It's actually citywide. It's not just isolated in one area. So it's widespread throughout the city, different areas that they've identified on a map. So those comments won't be due back until December 23rd. So it gives them opportunity to take it home or pull it up. We'll have a link, so they'll be able to fill that out electronically, send it back to Gonzalez. Then the fun starts because they'll have to go through those different comments and figure out a hierarchy of what the problems are. So if it's related just sheer runoff from one property to the next, or if it's some other issue, then they'll identify that. Then the other steps that they'll have to commit to would be going out and actually identifying out in the field. So that'll take a few months. And ideally, we would bring back a final report with a ranking, a rough cost, everything that we need to basically give us a blueprint moving forward. That would be around April of 2022. So I know it'll take a while to develop. They'll put boots on the ground in early 2022. And then once they look at things, then they'll actually develop some sort of estimate and then present a prioritization to figure out, where is the low-hanging fruit? What else do we need? And then also figure out like our budget cycles when we'd be able to commit some of these. Could be, OMCI money, it could be stormwater money, it could be a combination of different things. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I don't know if you have specific questions. I know there's a lot here. I don't know if you've looked at the questionnaire, if you think that maybe we're missing something. The other thing we put together, I should say they put together for us to look at and comment on, is there's potential questions and answers. That's basically just like a fact sheet, frequently asked questions. So it just says, what is this project all about? When is my drainage problem going to be fixed? Things that most people already ask us, but putting, question and answer together. And then if there's something that's off script, of course, we'll give thought to that and give them some sort of reply.
Yeah, Nancy?
I have questions about two of the documents. The first one is the Q&A. It's sort of answered in number 3, but do we need to emphasize more that the city's not, the goal of this is not for the city to pay for every stormwater issue that's going on all over Brentwood? Like if my pop-up sump pump is too close to the street, that's not the city's job to pay to fix that. So do we need to emphasize, I know we're cataloging all of these issues and what are
We
problems.
talked about that when we met, and we asked a similar question, whether we needed to put that out now. But
Right.
they suggested that maybe we wait.
Yeah, I think they wanted to see, it's like, they didn't want to discourage people from commenting on
Right.
problems if they knew that they had a private issue. Of course, when they look at it, then they would say, well, that's a private issue. It's in your backyard. It's between your neighbor. But I think they were still going to come up with some sort of rough solution and say, well,
Exactly, for every problem that's brought to our
Right.
attention. But, I think we can work on that because we agree with you. I think it's important to put out so that people know going in, the city's not paying 100% of the cost of this. There might be some sort of partnership with residents for the cost of solving this problem. So we can come up with language for that.
Well, and there may be some that just aren't the city's responsibility
all.
at all. And
Right.
so, yeah, I run into that a lot, that, the city should pay for this, and they
Yeah.
used to do that,
Right, yeah.
we all have done that. And then my other question is about the questionnaire. And I guess Gonzalez put it together, but I'd be shocked if any house in Brentwood couldn't answer yes to at least one of these questions. So, are we really, I guess that's what we're trying to gather, but it
yeah,
seems.
because they're trying to get some sort of bearing on what the problem really is. Is it road related? Is it gutter related? Is it none of those things? Is it really, drains and downspouts? So it kind of pinpoints where they should be looking as the engineer when they go out in the field.
Okay.
I guess they'd rather ask more questions than not enough questions, and then when they go out there, they don't really know what they're looking for. And then they were going to, I believe, make this into some sort of like fillable PDF so that you could do it electronically. But knowing that some people don't have computers, there'll be the hard copy availability here at City Hall.
Just seems like maybe that's great that they're gonna gather all this, but I feel like there'd be a lot of residents who are gonna fill this out, and
Right.
I guess they'll weed through and decide what are actually issues and what aren't,
Right.
but.
That's one of the reasons why we kind of added another day for residents to come out. We know that there are other locations in the city where the issue is the sump pump or whether it's the downspout. So in my mind, I would think that those are 100% that property owner's problem to solve. Because they have it, they're creating difficulty or challenges for their neighbors. But we just wanted to capture all of that so that we have a chance to educate everyone, hopefully, all at once.
And then my last question is there an opportunity to, like, report on issues that aren't on your own property, but that are causing an issue? Like, there's water runoff from so-and-so's sump pump that freezes on the sidewalk, and I can't get out of my driveway because of their sump pump. which-
Absolutely. We have some of those already.
Yeah, oh,
So, yeah.
Yeah, and we gave that list to Gonzalez. That's on the map they've colored in regions that we've identified, whether it's Bridgeport, Moritz, I mean, the common reported areas that we go out and we break up ice and salt.
For instance, people who use our paths and our trails, I think we just got a notice of one of those maybe this week. So we want to encourage our residents to report it, absolutely.
Great, thank you.
So I agree. I think the questions, pretty much everybody probably could answer yes to one or two or more of them. Are we asking for evidence from them at all in the form of photographs or anything like that? Is there a way to do that in the questionnaire to be able to submit pictures or video of the problem?
I don't think that's on there, but part of what they're tasked with is they have to pay a site visit. But I guess having those pictures,
Well, yeah, I
because
mean,
when
could
they
ask them
go, the
questions.
situation might
Yeah.
not be there. So we can include that, right?
maybe it helps you narrow down so you're not visiting, 8,000 residents' homes to look at every.
Yeah, we could ask that in the questionnaire if they have an ability to give us some sort of either photograph, we make a copy of it, or they've got something digitally that they can just email us.
But Gonzalez Engineering, I believe they've said consistently, they will pay a site visit to
Yes.
every location.
Okay. While it's raining?
Stealing an umbrella.
Just one question. So I guess I like the fillable PDF, but I mean, I was under the impression there would be a website. I mean, this could be much easier than even a fillable PDF to fill out. I mean, otherwise, I'm gonna have to print this out and handwrite it and then scan it and then email it to you. So I don't know, this seems like some awesome 1980s technology. We could streamline this, though. I don't know,
What are you suggesting we do?
well, I mean,
Like a Google Form,
I think
like-
even something better than a fillable PDF. That, I don't think anybody understands how to use those anyway, so like,
Okay.
I don't know,
Like
this
a
should be an
Word
online
document?
form if they want to use it. I think
Oh,
you'd
you
need the
talking
paper.
like SurveyMonkey or something like that where you
Whatever,
just-
I mean,
yeah.
Gonzalez said they would do that, so.
Right, right.
There's gotta be an easier way. We can't make this hard to fill this thing out.
You could submit, upload pictures too.
Right, I mean,
Right,
otherwise
yeah.
Gonzalez is going through 20 questions on each one of these and typing them in somewhere. I don't know, I mean,
So work with them on something easier. Okay.
because I personally plan to submit like 10 of these, for my ward, because I'm aware of it over the years.
Okay.
Okay, so is there any action from us neither, or is this awareness only?
No, this is just information sharing unless you've provided us some edits that need to be made.
Yeah,
So-
I'll just reiterate what I said when we talked to the board about this. I mean, it's gonna be on us, on the board, to notify our residents that this is out there and get them to identify the problems and come to these. So, great topic for ward meetings and those things, so. All right, thanks, Dan.
Yep.
All right, we'll move on to item 6, department commission reports. So, I guess Dan, don't go anywhere. There
It's
you go.
Dan, he's still,
Yeah,
You're next.
didn't want to sit down. Yeah, so some of the stuff we put in here was the compost grant. So we received one for 2021. I filled out an application, I believe that was back in August. I'm kind of blurry on the timeline, but I believe it was end of August. And I received maybe 2 weeks ago notification from St. Louis Department of Public Health, St. Louis County Department of Public Health, that we received that grant that I submitted, which was basically cutting and pasting the other one and making a few changes. So the good news is they would provide up to another $7,000 for 2022. So unless you think I should change anything, I wasn't going to change a thing. It would be the compost tumblers, the kitchen pails. We would assemble them, we would deliver them. If they still make that make and model, I would run with that. It seems like everyone appreciated it, so that's the good news.
And we have a wait list still of people, right?
There were just a few, that trickled in at the end. But we pushed out, I think, 60 of them. We met our goal. Again, we were saying we were going to try to do 70, but we didn't get to 70. But by doing the 60, we more than spent the 7,000, which was the end game, was to spend at least the money that we were given as free money.
Awesome.
So that's good news. The only thing that they told me is I'll have to bring back to everyone the resolution. So there'll be a resolution to enter into an agreement with the county for 2022 to do that grant. And then they want us to modify our compost language in the code. So they have some ideas of what it should change to so that it matches best management practices. That's not a big deal. And then we already talked a little bit about Rosalie. So Krupp Construction started last week. They started with the sidewalk removals on the south side of Rosalie. They're just, would it be east of the post office? They did a couple hundred feet. The rain has kept them at bay from doing the rest of the work they planned on doing this week. But I know I spoke with them and they would come out, probably not tomorrow because there's more rain, but definitely Monday. So they'll continue to do removals. They've been doing a pretty good job as far as keeping dirt off the road and, you know, making sure that at the end of the day, there's no equipment or anything that's blocking people's view or just in general, you know, keeping things clean, which is good. And then also with Rosalie, there was an open house. It's probably over with by now, but it started at 6 o'clock today. I know that the year was off on their flyer, but it was actually today with MSD. So what that means is that after this open house, they'll publish those results of the open house or the presentation. And then Luth and Sons, who's MSD's contractor, would probably start at the end of October, beginning of November. So they'll start close, well, actually they'll start here at City Hall. So on the corner of the buildings at Planter on top of an inlet, that inlet is connected to a box culvert. So they'll start with that box culvert and go north up through the alley and then cross Rosalie and continue north until they go past White and Bridgeport and tie in. And then there'll be a little bit of piping going parallel to the roadways. But this is going to take, once they start, probably at least 6 months. It'll be a while. You know, and of course they're starting now this late in the year when weather's never great. But as soon as we get a schedule from them, we'll publish that and let everyone know what's going on. My goal is that the Krupp folks are done by the time this thing really gets going so that there's not multiple contractors on the road. That's what I would hope. So again, the sidewalks are going along, and then we'll also put in those street lights. That's a different contractor that's a sub to, it's Meyer Electric that'll work for Krupp. And then the one thing I didn't put on here, which I'll just touch on, Byrne and Jones is still doing those street projects back in Hanley Industrial Court. There was supposed to be a pour on Friday tomorrow, but it's probably going to be Monday because of the wet weather. So that'll take care of the concrete over by Metro Lighting and Dobbs. That area's broken up. And then also over by Hoffman Brothers and Brentwood School District. Once they get those poured, then we'll let them tear into some more, which would be over by the Deerbergs parking lot where the Metrolink tracks are going over to Ice Cream Specialties. That's going to have to be phased because we always want to keep at least one lane of traffic open. So they'll have to break out some, pour some, let it cure, and then skip over to the other side and keep doing that until we can get it done. So the goal is to have it all done by November. And that's it. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Dan. We'll move on to item 6B, Parks and Rec. I'm really bad about that tonight.
I'll try to make stuff quick tonight since I took up a lot of time already. We're just bringing forward back the storm damage policy for recommendation. All we really did was add that second paragraph, which is after the fierce storms, the city with citywide debris, the city administrator, their designee may approve storm debris collection for privately owned trees as well, and talks about some of the what they'll need to do, which is we figured we had to put a time limit on it, so we figured a week was good to contact removal or contact the staff to get it removed and to get out to the curb. So that gives BOLA, and if BOLA wants to pass that on to myself or anyone else in the city, you know, I'm assuming we'll be in communication with the board anytime there's a heavy storm like that. So that is our recommendation.
Yeah, Steve.
Make sure it's equitable for all the residents. How are you treating Brentwood Forest under their condition?
So we would, I'll be honest, we do have street trees in Brentwood Forest, so we maintain those during storms. So there's been times we've been out there. I think it'd be like anything else, if they have other private trees, that we could go out and take care of that as well. I know last time, they have the contract with Davy Tree as well, and Davy Tree was already out there working on stuff when we were talking about other places in the city. So I think they're pretty quick to call Davy Tree as well.
All right, thank you.
And then how will we clearly communicate that this decision has been made, that we've triggered the city pickup?
Yeah. Yeah, I think you'll see a lot what we did this year, which is Facebook, Nextdoor, website, things like that.
That
So
would be my request, just so we know if it's happening or not.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, Nancy?
And I like the fact that there's the week timeline and that there's something to point to when residents come later, and this is just the policy, and this is great, and I applaud your efforts. Oh, actually, I applaud your efforts of your team for cleaning up all these multiple storms.
they did all
And
the work.
They did, yeah. And this policy is great, too. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Eric.
One more
Oh,
quick
sorry.
thing is that's not in here, but I just wanted to mention, we received word from MoDOT about their project coming up. And so one of the things, part of that project is the Rogers Parkway Playground. They're going to start removing that starting next week. So I just want to make sure, kind of mention that to you guys as well. It'll be in my weekly report as well.
Yeah, Jeff?
Are we doing anything to notify all of those residents that are right there? Is there signs that are going to be posted at all?
We can we can work on,
MoDOT indicated that they had notified those 3 houses, but I don't know that, and they
But the
posted
ones
it
on Dorothy?
on Facebook, right. But I asked if we were going to follow the city policy where we would notify anyone within 300 feet, and I haven't heard a response from that, but I think we need to.
I think we
So
absolutely
that
need to.
everybody in that neighborhood is
Yes.
aware that this is going on.
and we can even get a quick yard sign made.
Yeah,
It's Mary and Dorothy.
okay.
But I think, obviously, all of this construction, knowing the sensitivities, even with the work that was done on Manchester, and then,
Right.
caused people delays to get into their homes, I think the more we can communicate with these residents, the better.
Right,
Especially not just the 3 homes on Mary, but
Right.
all the homes on Dorothy and Van Mark Way.
not
'cause-
everybody's on Facebook that would have seen it this
No,
morning,
and-
so I
and-
think I shared that with Dan.
And people still do use that playground quite a bit. So even removing the playground is going to be
Yeah.
something, if they're not expecting it,
Right.
We'll work on the signs.
Yeah, Nancy?
Do we need a motion on the storm damage policy?
Is it your policy? It's in your document?
Okay. Okay.
All right, speak now or forever hold your peace. All right, thanks, Eric. All right, Whitney, moving to planning and zoning. Planning and development, excuse me.
Good evening. The Planning and Zoning Commission met last night and reviewed draft ordinance for the EV readiness. There was a few questions, and we will try to clarify that before it goes to council. However, they did not make a positive recommendation. They felt the demand wasn't necessary, wasn't there to require it for any home, and that would be an undue burden on residents that do not have an electric vehicle to require that they provide one. So, but we will schedule it for the public hearing on the November 15th Board of Aldermen meeting, and we'll try to provide some clarifying language. There were some questions regarding how we would implement it with condo development, particularly in Brentwood 4, so I will try to provide some clarifying language for that.
Yeah, Nancy?
So I haven't had an opportunity to watch the planning and zoning meeting and the discussion, but so from what I understand, there are like 3 ways to go. There's like a full charger in the house, there's what I call the dryer vent plug, and then just making sure that there's room in the electric box to potentially do this later. Did they consider all 3 of those options? Were they only looking at the converter? And can you?
So the draft ordinance was to provide the actual plug-in and the amp within the electrical system for EV charging within either a garage or adjacent to a parking space if it's in a driveway. And that was to be, a minimum number of EV readiness was to be one for up to, from 1 to 4 spaces. So that's the way I drafted the ordinance before you. And then it just provided clarification on it would be for new construction and level 3 renovation, which the building code defines as major renovations or additions that is more than 50% of the home existing structure. So
I guess I'm still confused on what you just said. So they looked
they
at all
looked
three.
at all three,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah. And, yeah. Right. Right.
So just for clarification, we think this will be going to the Board of Aldermen on November 15th?
Correct.
And for,
Wait.
said for public hearing, will it be a ordinance that's presented
correct.
on November 5th? Okay.
The red line ordinance is actually, if you wanted to look it up, there was also some public comments received from the Home Builders Association of Greater St. Louis, and one of the commission members, I'm sorry, who could not attend, provided some comments, so you could look at those.
To the commission last night that it is ministerial, that we were just bringing it to them for information, but they chose to vote on it. So
Correct. The Planning and Zoning Commission does not make recommendations on text amendments outside of just the zoning code. This is a building code. It falls under the Planning and Development Division, so we felt we would bring it to them for recommendation, but they don't officially have a role in it as it's a building code text amendment versus a zoning code text amendment.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, Steve?
I'm really confused now. So when it comes to the full board, is it coming as a negative recommendation?
Correct.
Okay.
It would come without a positive recommendation, right? So if you listen to the conversation at Planning and Zoning, they can't make a motion for a negative recommendation. So I missed the first 11 minutes, so I missed all the conversation about it last night, but.
Any recommendation is always in the affirmative, so you're
Right.
either, which the vote was 1 for, 4 against. So it will be a negative recommendation to the Board of Aldermen in that they did not recommend approval of. A motion is always in a positive because you're voting, it's like, yes, I want to vote for it,
Okay.
but the vote was a negative recommendation.
Yeah, Nancy.
So we've been here a long time, but I still want to ask, do we have neighboring communities who have such an ordinance?
Yes, this was based on the ordinance that Richmond Heights and the city of St. Louis passed, and that I was forwarded from them. So I largely based the drafting of the language on those. So,
similar to what Ameren has provided us. So Ameren came to the Sustainability Commission. So, I think many things we do, we are either the leader or one chooses to be the follower. And so this is an opportunity for the city to continue to be the leader on this front.
Yeah, so I know we're not voting on anything, but I'm just going to interject my opinion. We do have an electric car, so we've adopted this. We added onto our house. We put, what I call the dryer vent plug in the garage, just waiting because we figured at some point this technology's coming, and we may not buy it now. We didn't know how long it would be until we got an electric car, but we just have that plug in there, and I just sort of, especially even with an amp, I see this as a long-term benefit for our residents. It's sort of like what I think about stormwater. I'd rather know that I need to put my stormwater pop-up 10 feet back when I have my yard dug up than to find out later, and I've done my landscaping and I put in my fence, and now I've got to fix it. I feel like it's sort of the same thing with this. So like, you don't have to put a charger in. I think that's crazy, but, to have the ability to have this in your electric panel for some future time in 2 years and 5 years, it's not very long till all the car makers are only going to be making electric cars. It seems really foreign to us now, but it's going to come really quickly, and I personally feel like we need to do something both reasonable and forward-looking.
Yeah, Steve?
I'll go, well, I don't want to get in debate over that right now. We'll do it at the board.
Yeah.
But on the Richmond Heights, do they have the level 3 alterations in theirs? I thought it was just new construction.
The level 3 was what St. Louis County had.
City? Or-
I'm sorry, yes, St. Louis City.
Right.
So that's where I pulled that from. Because we get a lot more add-ons, additions to our older houses versus,
But so does Richmond Heights. but-
and largely on the older homes that are being renovated, you're having to upgrade the electrical anyway, so that's why we thought I would include it now as part of this, so.
But you don't know if Richmond Heights has the level 3 alterations.
Correct. I did not see that in theirs. I pulled it from what St. Louis County had on their information.
Thank you.
St. Louis City.
All right, any other questions? I'm sure we'll have a robust discussion on November 15th.
I like the market.
All right, let's move on to the fence.
Yes, we have been in touch with the property owner regarding the fence behind Walgreens. They have indicated they are continuing to have problems getting bids, contractors being responsive to the bids due to material shortages and staffing and the level of work that they're currently doing. They are looking to upgrade it to a vinyl fence. However, in the meantime, they have said that they would send someone to fix the existing fence until they can get a new fence fully replaced.
Whitney, I know you're new to this, and Eric might be able to give you a timeline on it, but this has been going on for years with that fence. And I think we need to set some type of timeline before they end up we take them to court on this. The other aspect of it is they've lost landscaping, some pines and everything. And I don't know at the time that development was made, but I believe there's supposed to be some type of landscaping screening. At least that's in our current code. I don't know what was decided when that was done. So is there any way we can, I'd like to get this put to bed, and we're all going to always have excuses on COVID or, supply chain. They're just going to find things left and right to hang this on.
Yeah. I can certainly discuss our next steps in code enforcement action with our chief building official and the city attorney regarding moving with that.
We've had other fences in Ward 3 that's gone through the same type of thing, and they've replaced them.
I did indicate to the Sandstone property that if a wood fence is faster, we would prefer the wood fence to get it done, but we need something done as soon as possible. So,
We'll work with Kevin to get a letter out.
Yeah.
That might get their attention.
Thank you.
So this isn't about the fence, but do they maintain the pavement that's sort of between the Walgreens and the back? Like if you're driving, you turn into Walgreens and you're driving to the west of the drive-through lanes to get to the community center, do they maintain that pavement?
I don't.
We need to check to see who owns it. It's not in good condition. It's
It's in horrible condition.
Yeah. It's ours? It's private. So we need to determine
Okay.
the ownership.
Well, if we're fighting with them on the fence,
And-
they
and
just
then
need to
it could
fix
be
it. I mean, it
another-
feels like the whole property's really
Right.
running down, so.
Yeah.
We'll add that to it.
We can do a whole code site and visit and
I know that there's definitely frustration with how long it takes some of these property owners to come into compliance. But I think it's a discussion we need to have, Whitney, to see what the code requires and whether a change needs to be brought forward so that we can expedite them solving this, because it does take a very long time for them to come into compliance. 30 days, 60, it's never 30 days. It's longer than that.
Any other questions, comments? All right, thanks, Whitney. Okay, we'll move into item D, sustainability. I don't know if Eric, you really have anything here or no?
Yeah, not much. We just threw a couple things in there for you guys to kind of look over. One was that there was a presentation made at the last meeting by Betsy from Home Sweet Home, a local nonprofit that takes care of donated furniture and large items. So the recommendation was made that we put that on the city's website with our trash collection, our large bulk item pickup. So I think we're working on that right now. There's the tour that Alderman Weggie mentioned already. That's going to be tomorrow. And then we continue to work on the sustainability plan. So that's a very quick update.
Yeah, Jeff.
So with the sustainability plan, is that going to include like a vision and mission statement for the Sustainability Commission so that we can judge our recommendations for approvals based on, does it meet certain things? So we're not
Yes.
just looking at, oh, this could be cool or that could be cool. It's like focused on
Yes.
a goal. Okay, good. Thank
In
you.
fact, they've approved the mission and vision.
Yeah. If I could spew it off the top of my head, I would.
No, that's okay. We can send it to you, though.
I'll put it in my weekly report.
Yeah, Eric and team, I'll just say, are doing a great job of leading that, because that is a complex thing, and so they're kind of taking it chunk by chunk and trying, so instead of like, come back a year later with a 100-page document, like,
Yeah.
just kind of work through it, and so.
No, but I think too, if you have that established, it might be good to just remind, when we bring projects for us to approve, just sort of remind how it meets the vision and the goals of the city.
Okay, we'll move on to item 7A, 2430 Cecilia Avenue, driveway condition concerns updates.
This one's pretty straightforward. If you recall, we discussed this item at the September 9th meeting. So what was discussed at that meeting was the condition of this driveway at 2430 Cecilia. So we had tabled it at the last meeting pending the opinion of the city attorney. City attorney said in his legal opinion that the city of Brentwood does not have any responsibility to replace the driveway apron since the driveway apron was completed around 2006 and the concrete finish was acceptable for many years, well beyond a basic warranty period for concrete materials. So I don't believe there's any action that's needed. We can notify the resident of the legal opinion unless you don't concur with it and want us to say something else.
Yeah, Steve.
Yeah, I had some concerns with this at the last meeting, but I will yield to Mr. O'Keefe and follow his recommendation.
Okay, so not hearing a motion to take any action. Thanks, Dan.
All right.
We'll move on to 8A, Storybuck Walk.
Again, I'll try to make this pretty quick. The library contacted this department to discuss the idea of a storybook walk. And the idea is it's basically little signs as you walk down a trail that has a book. We've done it before, but in a yard sign version, this is going to be a more permanent installation. The library will pay for the materials. They just ask that we install it and then, maintain it by cleaning it or things like that. But any future capital, if one were to break or things like that, the library would be responsible for. So it's something we've done. It's a great idea to continue to help people get outside, recreate with their kids. So we think it's a no-brainer. They're looking to get a recommendation this year because they need to buy the materials this year, and then we'd probably install it early next year. They're looking at Rogers Parkway because they want to do something now. I recommended Brentwood Park when it comes online too, and that might be a secondary installation at that time. So it's something that we're looking to be a great addition to the park system.
Yeah, Jeff.
I I loved seeing the yard sign version of it. I thought that was fun, especially during the first part of the pandemic. It was a nice break to get out and walk around and read the book. I guess the concern I would have, maybe this picture that they provided is not the best, but is this what the structure looks like?
Yeah,
Because it just feels like there's going to be a lot of maintenance to keep the plexiglass clean, and it's a fairly substantial structure, but it doesn't seem, what kind of vandalism, type of, with the yard signs, it's easy, it's cheap, may not be as permanent, but, so I'm
Yeah,
curious.
it's a very similar to that, what you see, and because that's been used across the country on similar storybook walks. I'll tell you, the bad thing about the yard signs is we had multiple yard signs stolen.
Yeah.
So, kids, teenagers, I guess, or really unhappy adults. Either way, they just kind of took them, and then we'd have to go out and replace it if we wanted to continue it. It's aluminum base. They're going back and forth between aluminum and wood. They think aluminum will hold longer. That's why, the idea of making sure that the library understands they're on the hook for the future capital needs, which they said they were, was important, because if something were to happen, we'll need to have them replace it. So I think if you see it, kind of like interpretive signage, even like our pavilion signs, I mean, it's very similar into those. So I'm not too worried about the maintenance and cleaning.
And do these sit lower to the ground, or, because obviously most of these books are for kids? So.
Yeah, they're about, 3 feet, I believe, 3 to 4 feet.
Okay.
3 feet. Yeah.
Great. Do you need a motion from us or just?
Yeah, I believe this
information
probably
only?
needs to go to the board for approval.
Okay.
You want to make it?
Anyone, any of you three?
Motion to enter into a partnership with the Brentwood Library and the Parks Department to do the called?
Storybook walk.
Yeah.
Second.
All right, we had a motion from Steve and a second from Jeff. Great, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Nay. Fantastic. All right, more surveying, more mystery property.
We think we're at the end, which is good. Unless you guys want us to do more, and we're more than happy to do it. But so we had these last sort of things, and the first was an apparent alley next to 8817 Moritz. And I think during the Public Works meeting, Alderman Lockmuller noticed that they think it continued on the lawn. And interesting enough, they did not find in any of the plats the alley next to 8817, but did find the alley from between Pine and Lawn. Now, again, it is, if you notice, it's all owned by SGE Properties. It's the Milton Building right there on Manchester. So it's not being used as an alley at all. So I don't know if it got lost in ordinances or something like that, but ultimately, I think it's probably something that should just be vacated and have SGE make that recommendation to the board at some point. So that was the first recommendation. The second is you can, because this will go to the board. Sure, we can do each.
Sorry, do you want to take them piecewise or do them all in one shot? Or
However you guys want to do it.
I'll make a motion to vacate the alley at, where is it, 8817 Moritz? Is that the one you want?
Correct.
It's Pine and Lawn, right?
What's, one?
Yes, the first one.
One on Moritz, right? 8817
yeah,
Moritz?
8817, item, area B.
Yep, I'll second.
All right, we have a motion by Steve, a second by Nancy to abandon. Any comments, questions?
Oh, I got one question.
Yeah, Steve.
Are these different than the dedicated pathways? So is this actually a city asset, a city property? Do we know?
It was platted as an alley, and so I think technically an alley is diverted to the city right. Now, again, if we could go back and I can do some more research, but ultimately the city gave approval to SGE when they purchased those two homes behind them, to then create their parking lot. So I think they just forgot the formality of vacating the alley.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments, questions? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Great. All right, let's move area C.
Yeah, that's another fun one. And so this is from Swim Club Lane to Hanley Industrial. It's actually platted as a street. Folk Avenue is actually the name of it. I'm not sure if it was ever used, but obviously we cannot find where it's been vacated at all. It's obviously not used as a road anymore. So we recommend vacating Folk Avenue.
Yeah, Steve.
Is this, do we need some of this, once you get across the creek down there by the dog park, is this something we want to retain in that area? Or am I looking at it wrong? Or is it already or we just keep it? We're not vacating the entire.
Technically, we're already using it
Okay.
as vacated property because the road would run right through it.
So we would just be vacating the ones that are adjacent to private property owners.
Yeah, Jeff.
So just, I mean, to be clear on that, we'd be vacating that portion of it to ourselves, essentially.
Correct.
Because we already have that, right? So it just becomes part of that
Correct.
section. So we don't need to break this up in any way.
No, we could still do it as one vacation as when we bring it back to the board.
Yeah, clearly there's no road there and probably hasn't been one for a long time. I mean, was there a bridge over?
That's why, I mean, there had to be something. I mean, that area is heavily wooded, so I've never seen remnants of a bridge back there, though. So.
Yeah, okay. I'll make a motion to vacate Folk Avenue right of way.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion by Jeff, second by Nancy. Questions, comments? All right, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Great. All right, move on to area D.
So this is probably the most fun one, which is between Lawn and South Swan. And when we brought this to the board to move forward with this section, I believe an alderman, or I think it was Alderwoman O'Neill, mentioned the fact that she believed that this had already been done. We were able to kind of go back, and Lisa was able to kind of find the survey that was done by Masselman Associates. And if you kind of read through the letter, they basically, on their plat, said it was vacated. But when they called Masselman about it, he said he never received any documentation showing the alley was indeed vacated. So currently, and they went through everything. They went through plats of Columbus Park, the Brentwood Forest, Condon Indian, Forest Park Hills, ordinances. There's nowhere that this has been vacated. Now, if you look at the exhibit, it's pretty much all in Brentwood Forest property. And most people's fence line begins where that alley begins. But ultimately, if we vacate it, all that property would go to the homeowners on Lawn Avenue because it was part of Columbus Park. So if you kind of see, and it's not perfect, we'd have to actually do the full surveys, but there's part of South Swan that encroach onto that alley. So there would be some fun discussions about this one if we move forward. But I think the big thing that TWM recommends is actually doing a title company to do in-depth search to make sure it hasn't been vacated, because they haven't found anything, but maybe there's something that's been lost in the annals and they can find something. So that would be my recommendation, to follow their recommendation to make sure it hasn't been done before we continue discussion of what to do with that property.
Yeah, Steve.
Recommendation to have staff hire a title company to do an in-depth title search of the alley along Lawn Avenue and South Swan Circle.
Second.
All right, motion by Steve, second by Nancy. Any questions, comments? Yeah, Nancy.
So I sort of hate to ask this, but what happens with the part that's west of High School Drive that is that green space behind Lawn and, that keeps going west? Did that alley keep going west?
I don't know. That could be another thing I could look at. We can do another survey.
I mean, because when you look at the
Yeah.
exhibit, it looks like it could have gone, and
You're correct. I mean, I I could do some primary research and try to bring that back. If I can't find anything, then we could see if we want to do a full investigation.
It's just a question.
It's a good question. I don't know the answer to that, unfortunately. But I can find out.
Does that change the motion in any
No,
way?
not, I seconded. It doesn't
Okay,
change.
yeah,
my
yeah.
second. I think I-
Any other questions, comments? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Nay?
Thank you.
Did we miss item D? We missed area D. That's the Salem.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
Salem
did. I
to
just jumped
Manchester
right over that. I'm
to
sorry. I'm
RPM.
just.
That's all right. I know what you're
so-
doing, keeping us on our toes.
Yeah,
Appreciate
so
that.
there is the parent alley between Manchester and Salem. There is a 15-foot alley in the original plat. They did not find any documentation vacating it. Obviously, Salem encroaches onto it. So again, it's kind of a piece of property that's not being used as an alley. So the recommendation is to vacate that to at this point, I think it'd be split between the owner or the business on Manchester and the house on Salem.
Yeah, Steve?
We want to retain this as far as the Brentwood bound development, as far as,
That's a very good question.
That's my thought. I mean,
Yeah.
And
right,
we
because
can-
there might be
Yeah.
a traffic light there at Salem and Manchester at some point in the future.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And so we can just continue to kind of monitor this and move forward. We don't have to take any action if that's the case.
All right. Failing to hear a motion, we'll,
See, I knew that was going
Correction.
to happen. That's why I just jumped over it.
all right, thanks, Eric. All right, we'll move on to item 8C, Fleet GPS Services Agreement.
This one's pretty straightforward. As most of you know, the different providers of these GPS units, they're migrating from 3G to 4G services. So what we have right now is 3G for what I have with Public Works, Parks, Admin, Fire, Police. Starting in February 2022, they'll no longer support the 3G units, so your unit would become obsolete and no longer work. So US Fleet is the current company we're using for everyone. And they've given us two different agreements. One would be strictly police. Those are the 11 units that are the ATV4 plus units. And then the other one is for everyone else. So that would be Public Works, Parks, Fire, for a total of 39 units. And they're keeping the prices the same, even though they're giving you a better, more modern, technologically better unit. It's still $29.95 per month per unit. So they're not raising rates. They've had the same rate for the last few years, and they'll continue with a 3-year contract with Public Works and a 2-year with police. So we're looking for a motion to take it to the full board to go ahead and approve these two contracts.
Yeah, Nancy?
Is this something we need to bid out?
We've been using US Fleet, so I guess you could, but I know ECDC uses the US Fleet units.
So we didn't bid this out when the board initially indicated that they wanted us to consider GPS installs in city vehicles. So we did talk to ECDC and we talked to another city to find out what they were using. And the preference from ECDC was so that they're not having to learn a new system. They're familiar with this one, and the city of Webster Groves had it. That's how the board approved our recommendation to select us. So if we decided to issue an RFP, then we would need to talk to ECDC and get their thoughts and comments on what would it take for them to learn a new system and monitor that. It could lead to additional cost for us. So those are some of the factors that we've taken into consideration.
Thank you, that answers.
All right, does anybody want to make that motion to proceed with this?
I'll make a motion that we proceed with the two service agreements with US Fleet for GPS services associated with the new 4G GPS units for the police department and all departments.
Second.
Great, we have a motion by Nancy and a second by Jeff. Any other comments or questions? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Nay? Okay, thank you. Move on to 9A, citizen comments. Crickets, all right. Move on to item 10A, adjourn. Looking
motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Great, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Great. Thank you, everybody. What a productive meeting.